Democrats simply don't have the cold-heartedness necessary to see people suffering and just say, let them eat cake.
Yeah, but then
they are not the types that
they voted repeatedly to do it. I mean, you just heard Democrats.
And what was Donald Trump doing in the meantime?
He doesn't have a vote in the legislature.
No, he's the president of the United States, the most powerful president with Republicans in my lifetime, Scott.
Ana Navarro was a guest on Abby Phillip's CNN show as part of a panel that included MAGA tool Scott Jennings, James Clyburn, Brianna Lyman, and Dylan Douglas. This episode of Abby Phillip's show was hosted by Sarah Seidner. We're going to take a look at this debate over the ending of the government shutdown. We're going to see what Ana Navarro, Scott Jennings, and the rest had to say. This one got pretty heated. I will share my thoughts on this as well. Let's get into it together.
A welcome ending or a missed opportunity. It depends on who you ask. 7 Democrats and 1 independent joined Republican senators and just voted to end the shutdown. The deal still needs, of course, to pass the House, but it will fund the government until the end of January. It will not, however, extend health care subsidies. That will be set for a date for a vote at a later time to extend those subsidies potentially in December. Some major backlash is emerging inside the Democratic Party. Those 8 senators are defending their vote now.
This was the reality. SNAP recipients suffering, nothing happening on ACA. So from suffering and no path, we've now got robust benefits and a path.
Staying in a shutdown mode was not getting us anywhere.
If the battle plan isn't working, you change the battle plan. You try another tactic, especially if what's happening is danger to your troops.
It's like, take the win. You know, we had an election and it went well on Tuesday. You want to overplay your hand.
But there are plenty of Democrats who disagree with those sentiments. For example, J.B. Pritzker says it wasn't a deal, but an empty promise. Congressman Seth Moulton said caving now makes no sense. California Governor Gavin Newsom called it pathetic and says America deserves better. Senator Chris Murphy added submission emboldens the tyrant. And Congressman Ro Khanna says Chuck Schumer is no longer effective and needs to be replaced. And then you have Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying working people want leaders whose word means something. We have Congressman Jim Clyburn here at the table tonight. His new book comes out tomorrow. It's titled The First 8. I have a copy of it here with me. I will have you sign it later. We will get to the book in just a bit. Sure. But first, this argument between Democrats. And I guess the big question is, if you didn't get the one thing that you were holding out for, what was it all for?
Well, I think we saw some things that we have not talked about that did happen. We saw what has happened with SNAP. I think that came out of this. What is happening with WIC, Women, Infant, and Children programs. So some things did happen. Now, on this particular issue, I think that's a real problem because you say you change your tactics. What are you changing to? It's a little bit like me hearing from my Republican friends, as I've been hearing for years, that we've got this plan. What kind of health care plan you have? They've never put one on the table. So if you got a new tactic, what's the new tactic? That's what causes me some pause about this plan. Now, if you promise a vote, is the vote on a bill or is the vote on the procedure? If you're promising me a vote on the bill, that means you're going to give me the 13 votes that you've got that I can get past the 60-vote filibuster. Now, if you're doing that and you will allow a direct vote, then I may have some consideration for it, because I do believe if you get to the 51, there are 2 or 3 Republicans that see the value in these tax credits.
Of the subsidies. Would you have voted along with the 7 Democrats that voted to go ahead and reopen the government and say, okay, you know what, we're not going to worry about the health care subsidies right this second. We just want to get this open? Absolutely not. Not from what I've seen. They may know something I don't know. It may be that they have a promise for 13 votes to get beyond the filibuster. I have not heard that.
If they had that kind of a promise, that's one thing I might take a look at. But if they don't have that as a promise, absolutely not. I would not vote for this.
Scott, I'm going to let you jump in here. But first, I want to let everyone hear from the Speaker of the House, who Jake Tapper talked to about this very issue, about whether or not this was going to be a vote, guaranteed vote, before the ACA subsidies end up ending. Let me let you hear what Mike Johnson had to say.
Would you bring it up?
Well, the bill that's going to pass
to extend the subsidies, that later vote.
I can't commit to anything that hasn't even passed through the Senate yet.
Will you have a vote on the issue as your 13 Republicans, frontline Republicans, people that you're the speaker because of them?
Yes.
They're in districts that are vulnerable. Sure. Will you have a vote so they can vote?
The very people that you were citing in the letter believe we have to have a real reform.
So you're not committing to bringing up a bill that deals with the Obamacare subsidies before they expire?
I'm not committing to it or not committing to it.
He's not committing to it or not committing to it. And this is the very thing that Democrats were afraid of, that if they capitulated, that the subsidies would not be dealt with. How do you respond to that? There are a lot of people worried about how expensive their health care is about to get.
Yeah, first of all, Congressman, congrats on your book. Honored to be with you tonight. Second, look, one thing that came out of this entire fight is that the healthcare system in this country has been, Obamacare, has been exposed as a complete and utter failure. We all know it now. Everybody admits it. The other thing that came out is that Democrats are willing to make people suffer. And you heard Democrat after Democrat today say, well, we just couldn't prolong the suffering. So they admit that their political tactics were designed to inflict suffering on the American people. We also learned about cynical politics in this. But the overall issue of health care is going to have to be dealt with because the system has failed. Everyone, I think it's bipartisan now, admits it. But I'm not sure that having Mike Johnson commit to giving billions of dollars to insurance companies for insurance that's not getting any better, it feels like it's getting worse to the American people, is going to make a difference. I could see Democrats and Republicans coming together to discuss that. Like, if we're going to spend this amount of money, should we be just giving it to insurance companies, or should we be doing something else with it that would actually have a chance of making it feel like you could get seen by a doctor and get a better health outcome? But what we're doing now, writing checks to health insurance companies, is not getting us any better outcomes at all.
But I think.
So here's a question. Who is a bigger weasel? MAGA Mike Johnson or MAGA Scott Jennings? Let me know in the comments who you think is a bigger weasel and a bigger douchebag than Mike Johnson or Scott Jennings. These has to be two of the worst people in the country. That said, Scott Jennings, this is what I wish every host on any show, like Sarah Seidner, filling in on Abby Phillip show on CNN, any of these shows, when these Republican propagandists like Scott Jennings say, Obamacare's a failure, it's not working, blah, 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 blah. And I definitely have problems with the ACA. We should have Medicare for all, but even ACA could definitely be improved a lot. What I would say to Scott Jennings and Mike Johnson and any of these Republicans, if I could speak to them, is Republicans have had 15 years to come up with a plan. If the ACA is so terrible, what is the plan that Republicans have? And they could have presented this to Trump and all the Republicans. Mike Johnson, Scott Jennings could have been parroting it on CNN every night on Abby Phillip show and other shows that he goes on. This is the Republican plan. Let's get this government back up and running. We have an amazing plan for the Americans. Here's the bullet points of what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to lower costs. Here's how we're going to make sure that everybody is covered. Here's how we're going to make sure that nobody goes bankrupt if they got sick. Why do the Republicans not do that? Now, you and I know the answer is Scott Jennings, MAGA, Mike Johnson, Donald Trump, they're all full of shit. There is no plan. They don't care if the American people die. So it's rich when Scott Jennings talks about the Democrats want to prolong suffering. We're going to hear from Ana Navarro here in a moment, a great rebuttal to this where I believe that she's spot on. But again, this douchebag, Scott Jennings, this propagandist, he goes on Abby Phillip show every night and does nothing, but he must have a great contract. Or, he helps their rating because he does nothing but spread this nonsense. And it's always the Democrats, the Democrats, the Democrats. Everything is on the Democrats. And I have problems with the way the Democrats handle this. And again, I certainly don't think that the ACA is perfect. But the blame here is on Republicans. And the American people are going to place that blame on Republicans.
I think what we saw also, I think what America saw, particularly people who were directly impacted and suffering, is they saw that Donald Trump does not give a damn. While people were going hungry, while federal workers were making lines that went round blocks, he was in Mar-a-Lago golfing or hosting lavish parties with seafood towers and caviar and champagne. Not at one point did he say, we have got to convene, I'm going to lead, I'm going to put Republicans and Democrats in a room around a table, like he did with Palestinians and Israelis, and we're going to craft a deal. We are all Americans and we have to figure this out. No, I mean, he just completely abdicated his duty to lead. And when he wasn't hosting a Great Gatsby party, he was giving $40 billion of U.S. taxpayer money to Argentina to bail out those people. Doesn't sound very America first to me. And so I think that put a light on the kind of precedent that people voted for.
Scott, with all respect, you cannot put on the American people that Democrats were the one that were hurting people, making this plight.
Who was casting the votes against opening the government, Democrats or Republicans?
Who was
casting the votes?
Scott, who was wanting to cut SNAP benefits?
Nobody.
And
Republicans
playing up
times.
SNAP benefits after 2 courts ruled that it was unallowed?
Republicans voted to fund SNAP 15 times. Democrats voted to defund it 15
and you talk
times.
About the affordable,
and we had to get 8 to join us.
You talk about the Affordable Health Care Act. Okay,
it's terrible.
Landmark legislation is not perfect. We understand that Democrats, Republicans, independents, 70% of Americans, not Democrats, not just independents, 70% of Americans believe that they should increase those subsidies past the dead mark of December, the COVID era subsidy benefits. So it's a huge thing that Democrats, Republicans, 70% agree with. And look, when it comes to the government shutdown, I was of the persuasion that to go for it, I didn't really get it. Democrats wanted a fight. They got a fight. Chuck Schumer, back in last year, didn't fight. He got a lot of flack for it, particularly in his home state of New York. So they wanted a fight, but they found a fight that was worth fighting with talking about the Affordable Health Care Act. People were with them. Democrats were leading in the polls. We won big on Tuesday.
That's what it was for, right? It was for the election, right?
Well, I think we should have kept going. What I don't understand, and which I would love others to help me out understand, I don't understand why we caved so soon when the American people seemed to be on our side.
Because the election ended. You just said it. It was for the election.
Listen,
the election ended. Then he caved.
I know a lot of Republicans. I know a lot of Democrats. They're cut from different cloths. Democrats simply don't have the cold-heartedness necessary to see people suffering and just say, let them eat cake.
Yeah, but then
they are not the types that
they voted repeatedly to do it. I mean, you just heard Democrats.
And what was Donald Trump doing in the meantime?
He doesn't have a vote in the legislature.
No, he's the president of the United States, the most powerful president with Republicans in my lifetime, Scott. He never once even told them, come back to Washington.
We just played Democrat.
You guys have been out of Washington for a month and a half.
Correct.
A month and a half.
We just played Democrat after Democrat admit that the Democratic plan to prolong the shutdown was causing, quote, suffering. That was their words, not mine. Democrats themselves realized the tactic of suffering was no longer something they could personally stomach. That was their party, not Republicans.
Only 7 Democrats voted for this.
8.
Not Democrat after Democrat. No.
He caucuses with the
There were
Democrats.
7.
Don't split hairs. He caucuses with the
And you're absolutely right. You're right.
Exactly.
Democrats did fold because Trump was wagering the American people's health, safety, and food security on politic games. And the Democrats, one silver lining I see that we can be proud of as Democrats is we folded because we're the party of humility and humanity.
So Ana Navarro, absolutely spot on with what she said. This is what it comes down to. Donald Trump doesn't care. The Republicans don't care. MAGA Mike Johnson does not care. Scott Jennings doesn't care. You know, he pretends, he smirks and mugs for the camera and all the bullshit stuff that he does when he goes on Abby Phillip's show. He doesn't care about people's health care. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. The Republican Party, they have no plan, as I said before. If they had a plan, they would have presented it. They don't want their donors and the wealthy people who vote for them to have to pay a penny more in taxes to pay subsidies to people that they feel are beneath them and undeserving. That's all this comes down to. It's just taxes. They don't want to pay taxes for anything that will benefit the American people. They don't want any of their tax dollars going to help normal people. They want that money to go to Argentina, as was referenced by Ana Navarro. We've got plenty of billions to give to Argentina or countries in the Middle East, or to spend on bombs to drop on fishing boats and all the rest. But money to actually make healthcare more affordable for American citizens, they don't care. That's all this is about. The Democrats, like Ana Navarro said, they're not cold-hearted like the Republicans. And I don't think that they should be that cold-hearted, but they need to learn how to fight properly against the Republicans. This is a whole new era. The decorum and the rules and all that stuff is out the window. I'm not saying that the Democrats should break the law and all of that, but they need to start actually fighting if they're not complicit. They need to actually start fighting for the American people, or they're going to keep getting their asses kicked by the Republicans. Let me know what you think about all this. Whose side are you on? Are you on the Ana Navarro side that the blame lies with the Republicans? Are you on the MAGA Scott Jennings side, where the blame for everything in the history of the world is on the side of the Democrats? He lets us know that every night on Abby Phillip Show. Let me know what you think. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I am Chris on Culture, and I'll see you in the next video.